What is going on, guys? Stefan here, S&E's Garage. In today's video, we're going to begin the teardown of the cylinder head from our 2011 Elantra with the snap timing belt. So, if you watched our last video, you'll know that we have 4 bent intake valves, and we need to basically tear this whole head apart. Because not only are we going to replace those 4 valves, we're going to go ahead and lap all of the rest of the valves and make sure that we're getting a nice, good sealing surface there. So what we went ahead and ordered is some Permatex valve grinding compound. I'll leave some of this stuff right here in the video description below. And we also got some brake clean here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove these buckets. Now, it is super important that you remember which bucket goes where. Otherwise, you're going to have a really bad time when you go to put it back together, because you're going to have to figure out which ones go where so you get your valve clearances right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull one out at a time. We're going to wipe them off with some brake clean and a paper towel here. And then we're going to write with a magic marker on top of them which valve they are. So this right here is the front of the engine. It's where the cam pulley goes in. So this is the exhaust side. This would be E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8. And then back here would be intake 1, so I1, I2, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead, get these all out, mark them, clean them, and set them aside. So you'll see here, we have this marked E1 for exhaust 1. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put you on a time lapse, and we're going to take care of the rest of these.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna let it rain. Tonight we're gonna let it rain. Tonight we're gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna let it rain.
Alright guys, so what you're going to see here is we have our exhaust buckets here and our intake buckets here. I just made a little piece of paper here. Actually ended up not being big enough, so I'm going to make a bigger one. But what we're going to do is when we pull the valves, we're going to put them next to their corresponding buckets. That way when we put everything back together, the same valve goes in the same spot in the head with the same buckets and the same springs. So, I have a valve spring compressor on order, but we do also have this one here that I don't know if it's going to work or not. Alright guys, so what we're going to start doing now is we're going to start removing valves. Now I'm going to remove the valves that I know are bent, and that is going to be these 2 here. These are intake number 3, and these 2 also, these are intake number 1. So we're going to be using this Lyle valve spring compressor. It's not ideal, but it's the only thing that I have right now. At the dealership that I was at, we had one that was a shop tool, and I haven't done a cylinder head since I left the dealer, so I really haven't had a need for one. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this paper towel here, and we're going to make sure we stick this right under the valves that we are trying to remove, because we don't want them to compress. We want to be able to push the keepers down to go ahead and get them off. So what you're going to hear is it's going to click like that. Okay, your keeper is going to be here, and your retainer. We're just going to go ahead and pull these out. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing here. You're just going to push until you hear it click. Like so. Oh, almost out. Okay, we got one. There we go. Again, retainer. And the keepers. You want to try to keep the retainer with the valve and the springs that you removed. So this is intake 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is going to go next to I5 over here. And this is going to go with I6. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and throw the keepers in the middle on that paper. Now let's go ahead and pull these two valves out. Take a look at them. Those are definitely bent. Those are big time bent. Take a look at that. Woo! Alright, so we're going to set those aside. Now I do just really quickly want to grab my flashlight here. And we want to just take a quick look at the seat. I want to make sure the seat didn't get crushed or beat up. And the seat actually looks to be like it is in pretty good shape. You definitely use a lapping, so when we get our new valves, obviously, we will lap them. But let's go ahead and do the same thing for the intake valves on number 1. Again, paper towel underneath. And then we're going to get our tool and pop them out. Okay, this is, you know, before I forget, we're going to put this back here. Okay, let's pull this off. Okay, same thing. Ooh, these are a little hard. Let's see if we can get it with a hammer here. This is really how you're supposed to do it, is like that. Okay, this is I2. This is I1. We're just going to pull our keepers out. And then we'll go ahead and remove the valves. Okay, all they should need is a little push. So I'm going to put these on a drill and I'm going to spin them and we're going to see if we can see any obvious bends in them. So this is the one, if you look up there, had a slight hit. And it has the slightest little bend in it. The other one is good, but I am going to replace both of the valves on that cylinder. So we are going to be doing 4 intake valves. Once my once my lapping tool comes in, we're going to start pulling exhaust valves, and one at a time we'll start lapping them. But for right this second, let's put this on hold. We're going to go ahead, we're going to wait for our intake valves and our lapping tool to come in, and we will resume at that point. Alright guys, so while we are waiting on parts for our cylinder head, we're going to go ahead and switch gears here, and we're going to focus on the cylinder block. So this is a cast iron block, so it's going to be very forgiving with how you clean it, but you still want to be sort of delicate or know what you're doing. So I'm going to go over it with this Scotch-Brite here. I'll leave some of this in the video description below, and I'm going to use this to get off all of the heavy contaminants or heavy surface imperfections or leftover gasket. And then whatever's left, I'm just gonna, with very light pressure, I'm gonna go over it with my whiz wheel. Again, super light pressure, just to go ahead and clean the rest of it off. Now, like I said, cast iron block, I can use this. It's gonna be pretty forgiving. If you're working on something that has an aluminum block, or for example, that aluminum cylinder head is not gonna get touched with this because this can create some dips in it. But like I said, let's just go over this with the Scotch-Brite, clean it up as best we can with it, and then we will take over with the whiz wheel when we get to that point. Now, when I'm doing this, I am not using a ton of pressure. I'm just letting the tool do the work. As you can see, we're coming up to a nice uniform surface here on the cylinder block. Now, what you are going to want to do, obviously, before you put the head gasket on and bolt everything together, is you're going to want to clean all of the residue out of the pistons, out of the cylinders, off of the head gasket. Try to blow some compressed air down into those cooling jackets. You want to get all that stuff out of the engine before you bolt it together. Let me go get a paper towel, wipe it down, and see how it looks. Alright guys, so for right now, this is what we are left with. We're not seeking perfection right now. We just kind of wanted to get the preliminary cleaning done, because we do need to leave this coated with oil or something so it does not rust while we are waiting for our parts for the cylinder head. So we're just, again, some WD-40, and we're just going to soak the whole surface of this deck. Get in the bores of the cylinders, and we're just going to make sure this does not rust. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and shut the hood. When I get some parts for that cylinder head, we'll switch gears back over to the head, prep it to go in the block, and then we'll resume under here. Alright guys, so we got 2 of our intake valves that we ordered in. I picked them up today from the dealer. These are Hyundai parts, you'll see. So I got 2 of them. We need 2 more. But our Fel-Pro head gasket kit also came in, which came with valve guide seals. So we got our valve guide seals, we got 2 of our valves, and we got our tool here for lapping valves. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna throw you on a time lapse. We're gonna disassemble the rest of this head. I am gonna go ahead and pull the rest of these valves, and at that point we'll start pulling the valve guide seals. I'll show you how we're gonna do that. We'll install the new valve guide seals, and then we'll start lapping all the good valves that we have.
Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes.
Alright guys, so now that we got all of our valves out, all of our buckets and all of our springs, you'll see I have them all over here labeled exactly where they go. we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start pulling these valve guide seals. Now I'm gonna show you how to remove one, and then from there, I'm gonna put you on a time lapse and we'll remove the rest that way so you're not sitting here watching me. So I'm just gonna take a long pair of needle nose vice grips here, pliers here rather, and let's just pick a guide. I'll go to this one, I'm gonna squeeze and I'm gonna pull. And you'll see the valve guide seal will come out like so. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull all 16 of these, and then we will go over the reinstallation. All right, so we have all 16 of our valve guide seals out, I should say. And now we're gonna go ahead and install our new ones. Now to install the new ones, what you're gonna wanna do is find a socket. I just happened to pick a 12 millimeter 1/4 inch shallow that's going to fit around the outside of the guide seal, sort of like this. And you're gonna use a dead blow hammer. You don't gotta use a big one, just a little one. You're gonna set your guide up and you're just gonna tap it in. Now we are gonna use a very little bit of silicone spray to go ahead and spray on the guide. That way when we drive the guide seal down, we don't rip or tear it. Because inside of the rubber here, or inside of the seal, is rubber that you don't want to damage. So let me go ahead, let's go grab our silicone spray and we will install these. Again, we're going to take some of our silicone spray here and we're just going to spray it on the guide. We're going to take our guide seal and our socket in there, put our socket over it. You don't want to make sure that it's going on square, because if it goes on crooked, it will get messed up, and you don't want that. This one went on a little funky there. Okay, so that's straight. So now we'll take one of our little dead blows with our socket here and just tap it on. Like so. So now we'll go ahead and do the rest on a time lapse.
They know we'll burn down the night, coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up, babe. Tonight we're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up.
Alright guys, we got most of our guide seals in here. I had 3 of them kind of going a little bit funny, so I took them out just to be safe rather than sorry. So I did just go ahead and order another set. So there are 3 exhaust valves that did not get done yet. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to start lapping the valves that we do have and getting ready to install them. And we'll leave those 3 exhaust valves for last. Those are exhaust 1, 2, and 3. So we can start with intake 1 and 2. We're going to use our 2 new valves for that. We have 3 and 4 up there. 5 and 6 we have to skip. And then we have 7 and 8 for the intake. And then we can do all the exhaust except for the 3 that I'm waiting on guide seals for. They should be here on Saturday, and today is Thursday. So let me get you back up on the tripod and let's start assembling and lapping valves. So very similarly to how we installed our guide seals, what we're going to do is we're going to spray the stem of the valve here with our silicone spray. That way it slides in and out of the guide nice and easy. But we're going to take some of our valve grinding compound here, and we're going to take our lapping tool, and we're going to slide this valve in, and we're going to go ahead and spin it. like this, like we're trying to start a campfire basically, and that's going to cut a fresh surface into the seat and mate it to this exact valve, and that is what we want. We want this valve to be mated with that seat, and that's the way it needs to be. So we're just going to grab the right attachment here for our valve. It comes with a bunch of different sizes. Perfect. Okay, so like I said, let's take some of our grinding compound here. Now this just goes on the seat. You don't put this on the stem. If you put this on the stem, you're going to run into problems because it's very gritty, and you don't want grit going into the valve guide. So we'll do that. Okay, I'm just going to spray a little bit of silicone on the stem. Okay, let's go ahead and slide this into the guide like so. Now we're going to take our tool here. Let's see if I can put a different tip on this. So what I found to work best with this lapping tool is if you spray it with a little bit of silicone, it'll stick on the valve, and then you can kind of get in here and lap the valve. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're sticking it on here with the lapping compound, and then spinning it back and forth like this. You can hear it. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to keep doing that, all the rest of these valves here, and when I'm done with this one, I'm going to pull it out and show you what you should see on the valve and on the valve seat. Okay guys, when you're done lapping your valve, you should see a nice uniform area around the face of the valve, which is where it's going to seal. So this looks really good, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to clean off the seat, and we're going to slide this valve in, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Alright guys, so our 3 new valve guide seals came in. We went ahead and put them in, and then we went ahead and brought the cylinder head over to a parts washer. One of my buddies has one. We cleaned it up real good. If I can get this to tilt. We went ahead and we cleaned the deck of the head so it looks phenomenal. And again, I just want you to take a look at those intake valve seats where we lapped them. Just, you know, how they look really nice. Now, I figured out we had a problem here with these valves that I ordered from Hyundai. They were actually shorter than the ones that we removed. And it turns out that in 2011, there were 2 different generations of the Elantra being built. You had the new MDUD Elantra that had just came out, and then they were still producing the Elantra Touring. So what had happened was the last 8 digits of my VIN number for this Elantra matched the last 8 digits of a newer body style Elantra, and they had accidentally ordered me the valves for the newer 1.8 liter engine, so they did not work. So I did have to go ahead and reorder 4 new intake valves, but in the meantime we went ahead and reassembled the rest of the head. We have all of our exhaust valves installed, and we have 4 of our intake valves installed, and all of the valve guide seats are in. So with that being said, it's just a waiting game now. We're waiting for our 4 other valves, and then with everything we did out there with the engine block and the cylinder head being prepped and clean, this is going to be ready to go into the car. So I'm going to end this video here. I'm not going to record me installing 4 more valves. You guys get the idea, you know, you saw me do it. So please like, share, and subscribe. Our next video will be reassembly. We're going to go ahead and reassemble this. Like I said, new head bolts. We're going to go ahead and completely reinstall this head and get the car running. So please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.